Hello, it's Heather Egan-Addis here again from Beachcomber Meditation for the next episode of our podcast. I'm here again with my dear friend Tracy Connor. How are you doing today, Tracy?
Well, I'm pretty good, thanks, Heather. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, really, really good.
Good.
And the topic for discussion today is around distraction and the busy mind.
Mm, very interesting. So, Heather, tell us, why are you wanting to talk about distraction?
I had an experience recently of a teaching experience, and I've had it a few times now, and I really wanted to say something about it. In that, you know, people who've been meditating for a long time often feel that they're failing because they think that their mind is constantly distracted. So I had this experience recently, and this person just was like, "Oh well, I can't meditate. I'm not good at meditation because I'm constantly distracted." This was after a practice, and then I did an inquiry in relation to this, and I asked them, "Well, did you know that you were distracted?" And they said yes. And I said, "Well, did you know where your mind was distracted to? What it was thinking about?" And she said, "Yes." So I said, "Well, can you see how you were actually aware of the distraction as it was happening?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then you were present, weren't you? You were present and aware of distraction." And actually, if we can be aware of what's happening in the mind when the mind is distracted, well, the mind is busy. I need to make this distinction between distraction and a busy mind. So you can have a busy mind and you can still be aware of the busy mind, that it is busy and what it's busy with. When you're distracted, you become so caught up in the thinking that you lose touch with the present moment and you're not aware of what you're thinking about. So that's the difference between um, full distraction and kind of busy mind thinking activity, but you actually know what you're thinking about. Yeah. And you've got, it's very easy to be present and to be aware of the mind when it's relaxed and settled and there are just a few thoughts moving through it. It's a lot more difficult to remain present and aware when the mind is very busy, and often it's busy because there's like an emotion there, maybe excitement or desire or anger or anxiety that's kind of feeding into the thinking activity. And if we can be present with that and know what's happening, and then that's the sign of a good practitioner. Um, and Rob Nairn had this definition of mindfulness: knowing what's happening while it's happening without preference. So it doesn't matter what's happening. The mind might be really busy, the mind might be really still, it might be really happy, it might be really sad. So what's happening is not the issue, it's the knowing. I know the mind is busy with these angry thoughts. I know the mind is busy with these happy thoughts. It's the knowing, and it's also the without preference part. I don't mind, I don't mind what the mind is doing. You know, it can be happy if it wants to, it can be sad if it wants to, you know, and whatever's happening, it can just be allowed, surrendered to kind of unfold itself. And if we can do this, if we can notice and be present with the busy mind and have a sense of without preference, so if we can sort of sit and, okay, well, today the mind is really busy, and I'm noticing this, and I keep, regrounding and still notice the busy mind. And if I can be okay with this, if I don't, give myself a hard time or get really annoyed that the mind is busy, then that creates the conditions for the mind to settle. If we've got a busy mind and we're resisting it, thinking, well, it shouldn't be like this, my mind should be really still, this is terrible, then that will just create the conditions for more busyness in the mind. And I often say to people, because however many times you say it, people think that meditation is about a still mind, no thoughts going through. And I say to people, well, if you woke up in the morning and you opened your eyes and you couldn't see anything, how would you feel? And they say, well, yeah, I'd be quite alarmed by this. Well, it's the same if you kind of, attend to the mind and there's no thoughts there, you're going to be in serious trouble. I mean, thoughts pass through the mind for a reason. So I think, I couldn't say it enough times. It doesn't matter what's happening in the mind when it comes to mindfulness or meditation practice. What matters is that we're aware of that and that we're okay with that. Yeah, so that's the practice, gradually cultivating the awareness. And how do we do this? We do this by noticing when we're distracted and coming back. But when we're distracted, we're not going, oh no, this is a disaster, and wrenching ourselves back. We're going, oh, this is interesting. What have I been thinking about? Oh, I've been thinking about my class tomorrow, or I've been thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner. Oh, that's really interesting, and come back. And then if we're curious about the mind's distractions, that gradually brings more awareness into them. And if, in using Rob Nairn's term, easy ozy, if we're easy ozy about it, we don't really mind too much. Oh, yeah, like, oh, the last 2 minutes, what have I been thinking about? Oh, yeah, I've been thinking about that party I'm going to next week. Oh, no problem. Come back again. And then, so that's the vibe we need to be focusing on in our meditation practice. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So I mean, you've talked about it, but just more specifically, so what is distraction in mindfulness then?
Yeah, okay. So in mindfulness, yeah. So I'm just going to come back to the first question. The
Yeah,
reason I really wanted to talk about it is to reassure people who've got busy minds in meditation that there's nothing wrong. We're human beings living in a busy world. Of course we've got busy minds. Nothing wrong with that. Um, and
yeah,
and then yeah, in mindfulness, distraction is really well, the mind starts wandering, and then we become distracted when it's really kind of gone off, and it's taking us out of touch with the present moment. So then we come back to the present moment. But as I just said, by being curious about that process of distraction, or where's the mind wandered to, or the future, the past, analyzing the present, then gradually we bring more awareness into that process. So then eventually, all being well, the mind can like be really busy, and we're sat there knowing that and not minding.
yeah.
Mm.
Fabulous. What a relief.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I think that so many of us take our meditation practice so seriously,
Yeah.
so personally, and
Mm,
we use it as a big stick to beat ourselves. But
mm,
by being a bit more allowing and recognizing, well, if I live my life like most of us do, 20 to the dozen, of course, when I sit down to meditate, the mind's going to be busy, but curious about that and allowing that, you know, then we might actually enjoy our meditation practice rather than, being some burden or some real kind of miserable sense that, oh no, it's a disaster again. I think that I feel quite strongly about this because I think that sometimes people are set up for failure, you know,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and maybe that
Yeah.
puts a lot of people off meditation and mindfulness and say, "Oh, I can't do it," but actually they can because they don't really recognize what it's all about. Mm.
Yeah. No, it's that it just reminds me of that thing about it's simple, but it's not easy.
Mm.
So, you
Mm.
know, that is such a simple thing to recognize, but it's experiencing it, isn't it, and practicing it. Yeah. Yeah. So, how does this relate to meditation then?
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
meditation is all about non-doing. And so people again think, oh, non-doing, the mind's not doing anything. So there will be activity happening in the mind. The non-doing is that we're not doing anything about it. We're not doing anything to it. So the mental activity that's happening in the mind, we're surrendering it to unfold itself in its own time and in its own way. So, all this mental activity is a bit like the weather moving through the sky. We just let it go. We just let it move through the sky and trust that our presence means that we will know all that we need to know about it. Yeah. So this is
Yeah.
this is this is how we bring like non-doing into the meditation practice. We surrender the mental activity to unfold itself effortlessly, which it's doing anyway, so we
Mhm.
don't need to do anything there. You just let that unfold itself effortlessly. Surrender is a good word. And then, so long as we're present, our aware being will effortlessly know what's unfolding. So we don't have to do that either. Like if you think about it when you're in meditation, no effort is required to know the thought that's arisen in the mind. You just know it. If you're present, you just know what the thought is. This is the self-displaying property of thoughts. They display themselves, they're effortlessly known. So there's no effort required there. So the stuff can unfold itself. Awareness effortlessly knows it. And then the other thing to begin with, when we start practicing, say, mindfulness and meditation, there is an element of doing in that we set the intention to be present. And then we notice when the mind has wandered, and then we come back to being present. So we might be using breath as the mindfulness support, or body sensations as the mindfulness support. So the mind wanders, we go, oh, yes, noticing the mind wanders, where's it's wandered to? And then we come back. So there's an effort required in that. But at the beginning of every practice, we set an intention to be present. We set an intention to notice when the mind wanders, and an intention to come back to being present. Okay. And then after a while, we can trust that intention because we've practiced for quite a long time. So when we're meditating, what wakes us up to the fact that the mind's wandered? It's our intention, and it does it by itself. Yeah. The mind automatically, oh, it's wandered. And then it automatically comes back because we've set the intention, and we can follow that. That intention is followed by the mind. We drop this instruction into the mind at the beginning of every practice. I intend to be present. When the mind wanders, I intend to notice, and I intend to come back. And then simply by setting that intention and practicing, it becomes an automatic thing. So we don't even have to do that. That does itself too. So that is the non-doing of meditation, and I guess that's and it's this attitude of non-preference as well, which is in there too. We actually don't mind what's unfolding, and that just creates the conditions for the mind to naturally settle of its own accord, and creates the conditions for us to kind of recognize what's going on, recognize where the mind wanders to, recognize what our habitual patterns are, and that creates conditions for insight, and then the insight creates the conditions for transformation. So we don't do any of this by simply meditating and being with our experience. It creates the conditions for transformation to happen of its own accord. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, an awareness just becomes natural.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not something we're trying to do, it just happens.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 So, so,
Mm.
so the next time anyone's meditating and thinking they're having a bad meditation because their mind's busy, you know, just let yourself off the hook, and be okay with that, because it's just all part of the process. Nothing wrong. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's the importance of compassion, isn't it? Self-compassion.
Mm.
Because I mean, what you see going on in your mind sometimes, you know, if you were to judge it, looking at all that stuff with judgment, my goodness,
Mm.
what a hard time you would give yourself.
Yeah.
But it's just like, one of the things I say is like, because I'm a nurse, is, the mind, thoughts arise out of the mind like insulin comes from the pancreas. It's like you can no more control what that activity of the pancreas than you can your mind, allowing thoughts just to come. They just come. Yeah.
Mm.
And it's that for me, it's always that, like, it's the difference between noticing thoughts and thinking.
Mm.
That's that clear distinction that you're lost in thinking, but you can just watch thoughts.
Mm.
Ah, look at that. Oh,
Mm.
oh, wow. Thinking that. What am I like? What's my mind like?
Mm.
And can I be okay about it? Yeah. Just be okay about it. It's just the
Mhm.
mind doing what the mind does. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. And then
mm.
in that way, we can navigate this, evolved mind that's not evolved for happiness or contentment. It's evolved for survival, and it's evolved in quite a haphazard way over the years. So, it can be a tricky thing to navigate in this modern world. But these skills in meditation um, enable us to navigate the mind more skillfully. Mm, yeah,
Absolutely.
brilliant. Okay, so here we are at the end of another episode of our podcast, and we'll be back fairly shortly with another episode. Um, Great to talk to you, Tracy, today.
And you.
Yeah, okay, take care.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.